What you're witnessing here isn't the latest scene coming out of Minneapolis. Well, these are most certainly leftist agitators, but they're not harassing ICE agents trying to sleep at a Hilton. These protesters are demonstrating in front of none other than Zohran Mamdani's home. And the reason they're there should send a chill down the spine of every so-called progressive politician in America. Stick with me to the very end of this video because we're about to expose how Mamdani is destroying virtually every promise he made to get elected and why his own supporters are finally realizing they've been played. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You know what they say about promises. They're a lot easier to make than to keep. And right now, New York City's new socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is learning that lesson the hard way. Just days ago, protesters gathered outside Gracie Mansion. That's the official residence of New York City's mayor. And they weren't conservatives or Republicans. These were Mamdani's own voters. The people who knocked on doors for him, the people who believed every word of his radical campaign promises. And now, reality has hit him like a ton of bricks.
That's right, we know about your mom. Now listen, we was with you, Zohran. We voted for you, Zohran. We advocated for you, Zohran. We advocated for you. You ain't getting up and get up in there and lie to us. You lied, Zohran. Shame, Zohran.
Shame! Shame!
Your first lie was CCRB, Zohran.
Shame!
CCRB to have the final say, Zohran.
Shame!
Now, the immediate trigger for that protest, as you just heard there, was the release of the Epstein files. And as it turns out, those files mention Mamdani's mother at a 2009 party. Apparently, Mamdani's mother, filmmaker Mira Nair, attended a 2009 after party at convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse. But let's be honest. I mean, that's just the spark. The real fire burning underneath is something much bigger. New York City voters are starting to realize they got sold a fantasy. Here's the brutal truth that Mamdani is now facing. And it was always there, but he did everything he possibly could to downplay it and ignore it during his campaign, with the help of the legacy media, I might add. New York City, as we speak, is staring down a $12.6 billion budget deficit over the next 2 fiscal years. Let me say that again. $12.6 billion. That's billion with a B. The city comptroller says this is the worst budget crisis New York has faced in almost 20 years since the 2008 financial collapse. Now, you don't have to be an economic genius here. Mamdani won his election by promising voters the moon, almost literally, right? Free buses for everyone, estimated costs $700 million, $800 million per year. Universal free childcare starting at 6 weeks old. His own campaign estimated that would cost about $6 billion annually. Government-run grocery stores, frozen rents, tax the rich into oblivion. He was going to turn New York City into a socialist paradise. His campaign paid, right? These were not organic supporters. His campaign bought and paid for somewhere between 90,000 and 100,000 volunteers. They went door to door. They made phone calls. They organized rallies. Bernie Sanders campaigned for him. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaigned for him. This was supposed to be the big one. Proof that socialism could work in the heart of American capitalism. And now, reality is hitting like a $12 billion freight train. Mamdani himself has been forced to admit the scale of the crisis. He's calling it Eric Adams' budget crisis, right? Blaming his predecessor, Eric Adams, for hiding the true nature of this fiscal disaster. And look, Adams had his problems, no question about that. But here's what Mamdani conveniently leaves out. Even if every criticism of Adams is true, it doesn't change the fundamental math problem. The city comptroller laid it out in stark terms. There's a $2.2 billion shortfall for the current fiscal year ending in June, and then a staggering $10.4 billion gap projected for fiscal year 2027. And this isn't because the economy is bad. Actually, tax revenues in New York City have increased by 7% this year. Wall Street bonuses are hitting record highs approaching $50 billion. The problem isn't that New York doesn't have money coming in. The problem is all the money going out. It's that the city already spends far too much money on programs that don't work. And now, as if to pour gasoline on the fire, enter Zohran Mamdani. And he wants to spend an additional $10 billion on social welfare programs. Remember, there's no problem too big or issue too small that the government can't address, right? Okay, fine. Simple. Good. So here's a comparably simple question. How are you going to pay for it? No problem, Zohran. Okay. How are you planning to pay for this promised socialist utopia? Well, his answer is the same old tired refrain we always hear from the left. Well, we're going to tax the rich. Now, I want you to think about that. Right there. Right there. How are you going to pay for it? We're going to tax the rich. So this guy claims to be so enlightened. He's so innovative. He's so hip. There's no problem too big, no issue too small he can't fix. And then when asked, okay, how are you going to pay for that fix, he falls back on the same old, tired, stale, thoroughly refuted notion of taxing the rich. He's already giving away the game. He's already showing himself to be a total charlatan. He claims to be innovative, and yet he literally has no creative ideas in terms of how to pay for that supposed innovation. He has no programs that haven't already been attempted in Cuba and Venezuela. He's just another socialist hack who now wants to raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. There's just one problem. Reality just bit him in the arse hard. And now, more and more of his supporters, as you just saw, are realizing they got duped. Wait until you see this. You know, the same nefarious, corrupt forces that have infested Minnesota's government have been eating away at your savings now for years at a federal level. Now, of course, we're talking about inflation, where reckless Federal Reserve policies have been relentlessly devaluing our dollars for decades. Here's a not-so-fun fact for you. Whatever money you had saved up in 2020 has already lost 22% of its value. There are riots over in Tehran over things like this, gang. I mean, your savings didn't shrink. They got robbed slowly and quietly by the hidden tax called inflation. And here's what makes this explosive. Most Americans have 100% of their retirement tied to paper assets, all dependent on a system that just keeps printing more dollars. But thankfully, there's a way to protect what you've worked so hard to build, and that's with physical gold and silver. And that's why I turned to Augusta Precious Metals, the absolute best in the business. Augusta Precious Metals has been helping Americans diversify with physical gold for over a decade. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, thousands of satisfied customers, and unmatched transparency. I cannot recommend them enough. Go to TurleyBuysGold.com right now or text Turley to 35052 to get their free information guide. And here's what you need to understand. This isn't about liquidating everything. This is about repositioning a portion of your savings. This stays inside your IRA or your 401k. No taxes, no penalties. As the best and clear leader in their field with my seal of approval, Augusta Precious Metals makes it simple. It starts with that free guide, then a one-on-one educational call. No obligation, no pressure. They're patriots just like us. You're going to love chatting with them. This is about stability, clarity, and a plan that makes sense in a world that feels increasingly chaotic. Augusta Precious Metals, the best at what they do, the ones I trust, and the ones I recommend to you. Go to turleybuysgold.com or text Turley to 35052. That's 35052 and get your free guide today. You'll sleep better tonight knowing you have a plan. The problem for Mamdani? New York Governor Kathy Hochul. She's already basically said no, nada, to virtually everything he wants. She's made it crystal clear she's not going to greenlight his tax increases. Remember, the New York State Constitution requires that all tax increases actually have to go through Albany, the state legislature. Mamdani does not have the power to raise taxes. The New York City Council does not have the power to raise taxes. The only legislative body in the state that can raise taxes is the state government in Albany, signed by the governor. So in many respects, what Mamdani was doing when he was making all of these insane and asinine promises is he was putting all the pressure, all the onus on Hochul, the governor, which she didn't appreciate even though she endorsed him during the campaign. He's not the one who's going to be raising the taxes. He's not the one that's going to be actually funding all that these socialist programs require. It was the New York State legislator that was going to have to do that. It was the governor's signature that was going to have to do that. And he conveniently left that out of the campaign. And Hochul is now calling his bluff. She's saying there's no way in hell that New York is going to be raising taxes on a population that's already one of the most taxed populations in the country, and that includes their wealthiest. It's just not going to happen. She has her own re-election coming up this year, and she knows she can't run on raising taxes and hope to win, especially if the Republicans get their act together and find someone like Lee Zeldin to run. And as a result, Hochul is now starting to shut down all of those promises one by one. Free buses? Nope. As a matter of fact, we'll make it even worse. The first week of January, just 3 days after Mamdani was sworn into office, subway and bus fares throughout the city actually went up. They increased to $3. The very first order of business for the new Mamdani administration was to oversee transportation costs going up. And then he wanted the city to buy up thousands of apartments for state-subsidized housing, and a judge shot that down. So after just days in office, the free buses his supporters were promised aren't happening. In fact, fares are more expensive than before he took office. And that subsidized housing he promised, not happening. Judge shot that down. And now reality is hitting even harder. All those programs he promised would cost somewhere between, say, $7 billion and $10 billion annually. Universal child care alone is $6 billion a year. That's equal to the entire budget of the NYPD. He making all those promises, and then all of a sudden he has to announce we're all walking straight into a $12.6 billion deficit that he's got to close. So where's the money coming from for all those promises? The answer is simple, and let's be blunt. It's not. That's the answer. The money isn't there. It's never been there. And that's the dirty little secret. It was never going to be there in the first place. New York socialists are learning the hard way that free stuff isn't free. And someone has always got to pay for it. When you're already $12.6 billion in the hole, adding another $10 billion in new programs isn't bold leadership. It's fiscal insanity. It's talking about square circles. 2 + 2 = 5. Men can be women. Mamdani supporters should be learning an important lesson right now. When a smooth-talking politician promises you everything, he's probably lying. When someone tells you that they can give you free buses, free childcare, free everything, and it won't hurt, no sacrifice, they're selling you a fantasy. Reality doesn't care about your ideology. And in New York City, reality is about to teach a very expensive lesson about the difference between campaign promises and actual governance. The chickens are coming home to roost for Zohran Mamdani, and we're only 1 month into his already failed administration. If you want quick, powerful moments from my daily show, stories of revival, victory, and renewal that'll fire you up each and every day, you're going to love Turley Clips. They're short, punchy, and packed with encouragement, perfect for your morning coffee, your drive to work, or any quick break anytime you need a boost of hope. Don't miss a single moment. Subscribe to Turley Clips right now, and let's keep building this new conservative age together.